my brain can't really wrap itself around what I seen. It's trying. I swear to God, it's almost like my brain's trying to come up with explanations for what I seen. I've gone out every night, man, looking up. Ever since that happened, I ain't seen nothing since. But
when you see it,
every night now, I'm going to go outside before I go to bed and look around real long and hard. I hear myself saying it to certain people, and I'm like, I'm just going to shut up, and I'm not going to tell anybody else I've seen it. Simply because certain people told me that, I would be like, hey, I believe this dude. Certain people, but if I didn't know him that well, I'd be like, well, shit, this guy's probably off his rocker or something, or he's a known bullshit artist or some shit. I don't know, but it just sounds kind of too far-fetched to be real. We'll take hours if you want going over exactly what happened and shit. I don't know. I'm a little freaked the fuck out right now, to be honest with you, Justin, because I don't know who this dude was that even called me or how he got my fucking number and how he knew. I mean, I'm like, man, I posted this with MUFON because this is what I seen. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't think it was going to really blow up like it did. I'm completely baffled at this freaking point, to be honest with you. And I'm like, I don't want shit. I don't even want to fucking talk. I don't want anything from this. I just felt compelled. What do I do? I've seen this. I mean, I've never done shit, anything remotely close to this, man. But I couldn't put down what I seen. And I was like, I got to do something. It felt like nothing was going to be the same after I seen it.
Hello, my name is Justin Brown, and I am the founder and lead investigator of Interface Death. And in today's video, I have something brand new to present to you. This is the very first UFO sighting case I have investigated and covered, and it is very interesting to me. And the reason that is lately, over the past couple years, there has been increasing reports of UFO sightings in and around my hometown of Hillsboro, Ohio, in the southern Ohio region. And it just so happens that in February 2017, there was a mass UFO sighting, or what they would call a wave of UFO sightings. And what makes this case particularly interesting to me is during Valentine's Day general date of 14th of February, a report was made to MUFON about a particular UFO sighting, and I saw it on social media, and I started, following it and doing vlogs on Facebook Live, talking about it, trying to get answers and see if anybody else has seen it, since it's right in my hometown. And it just so happens that the guy who actually reported it to MUFON was one of my friends that I've known since high school, and he contacted me, and he was open to the idea of talking to me about it. And I actually got the rare opportunity to go out to his house, sit down with him, interview him, get all the good, nice, juicy details, more than what MUFON's got, okay? So, he didn't want to be on camera. I'm not going to tell you his name, but he's a 42-year-old man out of Hillsboro, Ohio, and there was a lot of reasons why this UFO sighting in particular is interesting, and I'll tell you why. The gentleman used to be in the Army. His background and his job description in the Army was, anti-aircraft missile operations, and part of his job description was to identify civilian and military aircraft, identify friendly and enemy aircraft, and that was a major part of his job. He had to know what he was aiming at and shooting down out of the sky. So when he tells me that he's seen a craft that was twice as big as an aircraft carrier, which is, we're talking about 1,200 feet in width, 5,000 to 7,000 feet in the air over his house, and he couldn't explain what it was, then to me that gets my attention. But his two younger children saw it, and they reported it to me as well, and I had them draw some photos that I'll put up on the screen right here. And we'll let you take a look at those. And he described it as a boomerang-shaped UFO, and it was not like any aircraft he's ever saw. And we're going to listen to some actual audio from the interview, mixed with some footage of his house and exactly where he saw it in the airspace above his house. And we're going to get down to the details of this case. And to add to this case, I've had people report to me and also to the gentleman that I interviewed that saw the UFO that they saw it too. Very, very similar reports. And what's very, very interesting is after MUFON initially contacted him to make a report, he tells me that MUFON contacted him about 3 weeks ago and told him to totally disregard it and that it wasn't a UFO. And he did some background checking on the name that the guy gave him, and he does check out as a MUFON field investigator. So I just think that's interesting that MUFON would tell him that they believe him and he's not the only one that's seen it, and then, you know, weeks later they tell him that it wasn't, that it was a military craft. So that's very interesting, and I want to see what you guys think about this first UFO report and blog that I'm doing, and what you think about the guy's story. It's interesting because if you go on UFOtracker.com, you're going to see the wave of UFO sightings around the southern Ohio area, in particular the Hillsboro area and surrounding counties. The 2014 case outside of Hillsboro, Ohio is particularly interesting when the 60-year-old ex-military guy, he was a Marine, had a close encounter of the fourth kind, actually, he reported to MUFON, where he reported seeing a tall, gray being of some sort with ostrich-like legs, about 7 foot tall, no arms, no head, and just like a slender torso. And this being has actually been seen everywhere all over Highland County. And if you've seen anything like this, or seen any of this UFO crafts that you see in this video, in this blog, please contact me, let me know, and we'll try to see if we can figure out what this is. But that is it for the intro of this video, so hopefully you enjoy. And like I said, this is my first UFO blog and file, and if you have any more that's relates to this, or if you want to report any more UFO sightings to me that I actually can go investigate, let me know. Email me at justinbrown@interfacedeath.net, and please tell me what you think. Today is the 19th of February. It is 4:45 p.m. and we're going to talk about some UFO sighting that you had on Valentine's Day.
Yep. Okay. I had come home. I know the approximate time pretty well because I looked at my car clock as I was coming through town with him, and it said 6:54. I came home. Really, I had to pee. And she was in the bathroom. So I was like, I'm going to pee out the front. I mean, we're over the hill. Nobody can see anything here. It's pretty country. And as I went out, I started peeing, and I kind of relaxed like you would when you're peeing. And I happened to look up at the night sky to look at the stars, and I saw what I thought was the tail end of a cargo plane going, because that's something you see all the time, and it was moving kind of slow like that. You know, like it was way up there. If it looks like it's way, way up there, it looks like it's moving real slow. And I was like, well, that's pretty bright for a cargo plane to be that high, you know, that light is. And I just happened to look over a little bit more, and I was like, oh, there's another one, but no, that's not even the right color. And it's glowing, and it's big, and all of a sudden I put the two things between each other, this non-wavering yellowish, if pulsating at all, barely, and this amber glowing light in this shape with, it was like it was glowing from this corner up and then stopped, and I could make 3 distinct circles out in it as lights. And as I watched it, this is right out front of my house here. It was heading this way. I happened to look up, and when I made the correlation that no, that's one big object, and I could make out its silhouette against the cloud cover, which was above it, and I immediately started screaming. That's when I kicked the door open, because that's where I was peeing, is right by this open front door. Mm-hmm. I kicked the door open and started yelling for Braden, Mackenzie, come here. I want you guys to see this. Come here. It's real. I'm flipping out.
Right.
So they came running out front. And it hadn't moved very, very far because it wasn't moving fast. It wasn't moving fast at all. And in fact, that's why I couldn't make sense of it, because it was so big and it was moving so slow.
Right.
How could it be moving that slow and stay aloft? How could it stay in the air without thrust?
Right.
You know, I know at least enough about aircraft to know you got to have thrust for liftoff. You know, you got to, in order to stay in the air, you got to have some sort of propulsion behind you.
Yeah.
And this wasn't going fast enough to have that kind of propulsion for its size. And it wasn't very high up there. I'm saying maybe, I want to say between 5 and 10,000 feet, which I know is a big variance. But that's the only way I would feel comfortable giving it my speculation, because it could be anywhere in between there. And like I said, I watched it go around the side here, and that's when I could hear off in the distance, the jet fighters, and I watched those 3 lights go bing, 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 get a little bit brighter, and go bing, 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 fast.
Like it was powering up.
Like it was gearing up for something. That's what I said as I came running back through the house to get to my back deck to keep watching this thing, because I have a better view from back here. Mm-hmm. I was like, this thing's gearing up to do something. And I went running out the back, and by this time it had come over here. We watched it quicker, well, a lot quicker than it was moving before. It come over here, and then bing, 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 bing. 4 lights just show up in a string right across the sky. I know it sounds crazy. And this thing goes completely dark. And then those lights went, and they were gone. And that's when we started seeing the flashes show up.
So you expressed to me that it was like a boomerang-shaped craft.
Yes. I'm saying boomerang-shaped simply because I could make out the fact that in the back of this thing, it did come up to some sort of apex in the back. And I'm assuming a little bit here, just because of what I could tell. Like I said, it was pretty dark. Mm-hmm. But it looked like this thing had a mild apex in the middle and then went back down to the other side. Almost like it was in a V, but coming back. Mm-hmm. You know, like, well, I don't know what a shape like that. You know, like if you had a boomerang and you just lightly tilted the 2 points up in the back just a little bit. That's more of the shape it was. It wasn't like one set triangle piece.
Right.
It was like this, but if you took these legs and just kicked them back, backing up
it had
a little
like
bit.
a flare or a flame.
Yeah, and the front was down on it a little.
Huh.
And
based on your best guess, how big do you think it was at the altitude that you see?
it was bigger than a C-130. It was bigger than maybe destroyer size.
Really?
Battleship size. Yeah, I've been to Pearl Harbor. I've walked all over those things. I was stationed there in Hawaii in the Army. So I got to see the memorial a few times. We actually took runs to Pearl Harbor as a Yahoo battery thing.
Real quick, what was your job in the Army, and what do you know about aircraft as far as, you know, the different types that would might compare to this, and like your knowledge about the flares? That
I was a 16 Sierra Manpack crew member. That's the Stinger missile systems. Mm-hmm. If you've ever seen Under Siege, mm-hmm. when Steven Seagal goes out on the deck of the ship and he fires that missile, that shoulder-fired missile, and blows that helicopter out of the sky, or whatever that guy does, that's a Stinger. It's a heat-sinking guided missile that shoots aircraft out of the sky. It's the reason that the Afghanis were able to drive the Russians out, because they were just losing too many aircraft to these things. Well, when I got in, that was being phased out, and they were starting to shoot everything from the back of Humvees and the computer systems on them were a lot better, and you didn't have the screw-ups that a human could do. So they were moving to that system. So my MOS was getting phased out. But everyone who was in the anti-aircraft artillery field had to know BAR, basic aircraft recognition. You had, they tested us on it constantly the entire time I was in. You had to be able to notify exactly if it was civilian, hostile, ours, or
target
theirs.
Identification.
Ours or theirs, friendly or hostile. We had to know those things for my MOS. That was my whole job. And for the record, I'm not saying it was 100% an alien craft. I don't know what the military has. I've always heard that they're 50 or 100 years ahead on technology than what we see. Could it have been something like that? I have no idea. All I know is it's not a military craft I ever seen in my entire life. The way, and with it breaking up and going all different directions like it did, I don't know of anything we have that could do that. I don't know of anything that's that size, and I know of nothing that could float that slow and stay in the air with no sound whatsoever other than maybe a Zeppelin. And if your cognizances are all there, if you've got half of a level of intelligence that God gave an ant, you can look in the night sky and distinguish between that's a star or a planet. It's not moving, it's just sitting stationary. I know the colors of it. I know if I see a satellite moving straight through the sky, real high up there, faint, I know that's a satellite going across the sky. I know what is in the sky. I've looked at the sky. Literally that was my job.